Hi everyone, welcome to the first episode of my F1 history series, where I will talk about historic events from Formula 1. For this first episode I will talk about copyright, a topic which has become more significant in the last years. This video will not be about this year's Aston Martin though. The car I will talk about was such a severe case of copyright violation that it was banned by order of a court. This episode will be about the Arrows FA01. Our story begins in 1977 when 5 members of the Shadow team were told, if you don't like it here, just leave and build your own team. Those men were Franco Ambrosio, Alan Rees, Jackie Oliver, Dave Voss and Tony Southgate. They named their team Arrows by using the initials of their surnames, with Alan Rees being the lucky one who contributed his initial twice, and set up shop in Milton Keynes in November of 1977. Now you might be saying that it's enough time to design and build a car, as Formula 1 usually starts in March. Unfortunately for 1978 this was not the case. The season started on the 12th of January in Argentina. Arrows decided to skip this race, but they couldn't afford to skip the next race on the 29th of January, as a second missed race would have meant they would not be eligible for membership in the Ecclestone-led Formula 1 Constructors Association, or FOCA for short. Membership meant many commercial benefits such as subsidized air freight costs, which was clearly beneficial for a newly formed F1 team. This meant Arrows had only 60 days to design and build a car for the second race in Brazil. In an heroic effort, the team managed to put everything together and they presented the FA1 in snowy Silverstone right before they packed up and traveled to Brazil. This was unfortunately overshadowed by the fact that their second driver, Gunnar Nilsson, was diagnosed with cancer, which made it impossible for him to participate. So Arrows showed up with Riccardo Patrese as their only driver. The race weekend went off without a hitch, with Patrese qualifying 18th out of 24 and finishing the race 4 laps down in 10th position, a good result given the rushed nature of their preparations. The next race in Kyalami brought good and bad news for the young Arrows team. On the bad side, main sponsor Franco Ambrosio was jailed in Italy for tax evasion. But the team managed to get a new sponsorship in form of the German Warsteiner Brewery, giving the car its iconic golden livery. They also hired German driver Rolf Stommelen as their second driver. Qualifying went good, with Patrese qualifying 7th and Stommelen qualifying 21st out of 26. The race went well, with Patrese taking 3rd place from Lauda on lap 20 and taking the lead halfway through the race when the leading duo of Andretti and Scheckter developed tire issues. It looked like a fairy tale for the team that had entered the season with such bad luck around it. Unfortunately, 12 laps before the end, Patrese's Ford engine blew up, robbing them of a certain victory. Stommelen finished the race in 9th position, and the good performance would be confirmed in the next 2 races, with Patrese scoring a point in each race. Unfortunately for Arrows, behind the scenes a new problem began to emerge. 2 weeks after Kyalami, the International Trophy event at Silverstone began. This annual race was created by the British Racing Drivers Club in 1949 and was a premier non-championship Formula 1 event in Britain alongside the Race of Champions in Brands Hatch. This event was often used by the drivers and teams to practice under race conditions early in the season, as well as for Formula 2 drivers to show their mettle in a Formula 1 setting. The Shadow team used this event to present their brand new car, the Shadow DN9. When a journalist by the name of Alan Henry saw the car during his rounds through the pits, he blurted out, "Good Lord, it's an Arrows!" which surprised the Shadow crew and led to a very awkward moment for Henry. This led Shadow's team principal Don Nichols to investigate what happened, as their car was scheduled to race for the first time at the US Grand Prix on April the 2nd. As it turned out, Tony Southgate, the now technical director of the Arrows team, had previously worked for Shadow as an independent contractor, and in that capacity had drawn the plans for the now Shadow DN9. As such, he believed that the plans he had drawn were his intellectual property, so in his last day he stuffed the design papers into his bag and took them away right under the nose of the Shadow team. Jackie Oliver believed Southgate's claims that the plans were his intellectual property, and so Tony Southgate basically designed the same car twice. Unfortunately for Arrows, the contract between Shadow and Tony Southgate had stated that the design plans were in fact the intellectual property of the Shadow team, and so Don Nichols drew up a lawsuit for copyright infringement. Arrows tried to settle this matter outside of the court by offering £75,000 as compensation, but Don Nichols insisted that this case go before a court. Arrows, seeing the writing on the wall, began to design a new car in June of 1978, while still using the FA1 as long as they could. The FA1 showed some strong performances, including a second place behind the now infamous Brabham fan car at the Swedish Grand Prix. The FA1 would see its last race on the 30th of July 1978 at the German Grand Prix, where Patrese finished 9th while Stommelen was disqualified for an illegal pit stop. On the 1st of August, the London High Court ruled that Arrows would not have been able to build an F1 car in 60 days without the benefit of the existing design papers from the Shadow team. The judge therefore concluded that at least 40% of the Arrows FA1 was effectively the Shadow DN9 and ordered Arrows to pay a £15,000 fine, as well as banning the FA1 from entering any more races. Additionally, Arrows had to hand over all of the offending components to the Shadow team, which basically meant the entire car. Despite the loss in court, Arrows wouldn't miss a race as they had again managed to build a new car within 60 days. At the Austrian Grand Prix on the 13th of August, the new A1 made its debut. While the car wasn't as good as the FA1, as Stommelen didn't qualify for 4 of the 5 remaining races, Patrese managed to score a 4th place at the last race in Canada. Arrows finished the season in 10th place, being tied in points with the Williams team with 11 points. The Shadow team finished 1 place behind Arrows with 6 points in the Constructors' Championship. For 1979, Arrows would use a slightly modified A1 at the beginning of the season, scoring points in 2 races before introducing their new A2 race car, which would include the now ubiquitous ground effect. Arrows would become a solid midfield team and participated in 372 races without ever winning a Grand Prix, despite some great performances, with the most notable and closest to victory the second place from Damon Hill at the Hungarian Grand Prix of 1979. The Shadow team was bought at the beginning of the 1980 F1 season by Theodoro Racing. Theodoro Racing would close its doors at the end of 1983, as the turbo era made it harder for small teams to survive in Formula 1. But unlike Arrows, Shadow left Formula 1 with 1 victory to their name. The Shadow team name was revived in 2020 by Italian driver and entrepreneur Bernardo Mantre as an Italian car tuning and luxury brand. He announced plans to design a hypercar called Hypercar Shadow, as well as a modified variant of the Dodge Challenger, which was named DNB8 and later renamed to DNM8. The revived Shadow brand currently competes in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series as the MK1 Racing Italia team. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please leave a like and a comment. Please keep it respectful, and if you dislike it, please leave a comment as well to tell me what I can do better in the future. I hope I will be seeing you next time.